Channel many kudos. The recent video a day ago. E3's many scandals. And many kudos has like a whole playlist of many scandals.
The stage, 4-time McDonald's Monopoly instant winner. Many kudos.
Oh.
Wow. Thank you all so much for coming out tonight. It's with great pleasure that I am thrilled to be honored
I'm glad I came
to share
out.
with you a clip from our upcoming video, The Mini Scandals
That's a Fujoshi,
of
of course.
What's up, world? Yeah,
Can we skip this?
I'm Travis Scott. This is my McDonald's order.
The year is 1995, and video games are on the verge of collapse.
Whoa, free cube.
This beautiful intersection of art and interactivity and jiggle physics, the next frontier of storytelling and human expression, reduced to yet another scapegoat in a long line of scapegoats. In the eyes of the public, violent video games and youth violence went hand in controller, and politicians were salivating at the chance to rile people up. The games industry needed to be taken seriously. They needed
An award show. Or something.
E3 was an unforgettable
What does
experience.
E3 mean,
even
by
if
the
you've
way?
Never been.
Does this
Day
stand
after
for
day
anything?
of massive announcements, live streams, elaborate booths, sneak peeks at the newest games, consoles, and gimmicks, all peppered with some of the most uncomfortable moments ever broadcast to the internet. And wouldn't you know it, even the founding of E3 was a scandal.
Oh? Even the founding V3 was a scandal.
Today, two of the most popular games amongst kids are a literal shooter and a game where you can set animals on fire so that their meat comes out pre-cooked when they die. So it's easy to forget that there was once a period where video games were vilified.
Speaking of Minecraft, I want to play more
Gory video
Cobblemon.
games like Mortal Kombat and Kirby's Race War making their way to home consoles. Parents and politicians grew concerned that greedy game growers would happily indoctrinate a new generation of school shooters if it meant they could sell just a few cartridges more. This culminated in the 93-94 congressional hearings, headed by Senators Joe Lieberman and Herb Cole, who sounds like a fucking Star Wars character. Now, while the link between being a violent baby and owning gun for the original Xbox are tenuous at best,
What amazing naming Kirby's Race War. We don't talk about Kirby's Race War.
these hearings did make one valid point. Video games had no consistent rating system. This meant the moms of pre-internet America had to trust that their kids wouldn't lie about the gory nudity or full frontal violence that these consoles were now able to render in 16 glorious bits. Let's just hope little Timmy doesn't come across a man made of Lego or his fucking Winter Soldier style programming will kick in and try and...
A pixel style model would be really cool for like those old pixel games. That'd be really cool.
both his head and spine in one move. The government gave these proto-nerds an ultimatum. Either your industry creates a rating system, or the government will. And it
Kirby, why'd you cross the road when you saw Meta Knight? Oh, don't forget about Kirby's bridge incident.
will probably be done badly because it's the US government. At the time, Sega and Nintendo were in the midst of one of the bloodiest console wars in gaming history, and this rivalry spilled into the hearings, with goody two-shoes Nintendo boasting about how they required Mortal Kombat to replace all the blood with cum in their version, unlike those charlatans over at Sega. When it became apparent they needed to establish a consistent rating system, Nintendo also refused to adopt the crude rating system that Sega used on their own products.
Why white, by the way? Like, doesn't China do that with their censorship? When they censor blood, they turn the blood white. Why white? Is it because white's just like a standard neutral color? But why white? White has got to be the worst color you could pick to censor.
As this would be like admitting they were right all along, I guess. Grow up, Nintendo. But once it became apparent that this was bigger than just them, Sega, Nintendo, and a whole bunch of other cunts all came together to create the ESA, the Entertainment Software Association. They created the ESRB, the rating system still used in North America to this day, And what a coincidence, they also
Because Big Boy needs milk in their bodies to grow strong. Yeah, they totally need a whole bunch of milk when they stab somebody and blood's coming out of their mouth. Yeah, it's totally milk, actually. It's nothing else, it's milk.
created E3.
We're made
You're
of milk,
wondering where I was
actually.
going
We're
with
not made
this
of
shit.
blood.
It was them. They made E3. Violence wasn't the only stigma orbiting video games in the mid-90s. Unlike mature, socially acceptable activities like driving home drunk from the pub at 2 a.m. or sitting on the couch watching sport all day, video games were dismissed as toys for children. This
Jesus
stigma
Christ.
bled into the consumer electronic industry, where our scrappy heroes were undervalued and underestimated. Before Sega and Nintendo peddled their wares at E3, they were peddling all over themselves at the Consumer Electronics Show, or CES. These events were hugely important for networking and
there's sus
enticing
music.
buyers from retailers big and small. But CES seemed almost embarrassed to include video games alongside electronic address books and back massages, opting to put them up in a tent in a parking lot nearby. Pat Farrell, head of GamePro magazine, played here by an actor, told Polygon,
They put some porta potties out there and a little snacks stand where you could pick up a cookie. Everyone was like, this is bullshit. This is like Afghanistan.
Wait, so the actual person... Wait, so... This guy is like speaking in place of the CEO? Is that what he said?
Tom Kalinske, then CEO of Sega of America, said, "You had to walk past the porn section to get to the video game section. One year it was raining and the water leaked onto my Genesis machines. Oh boy." I turned to my team and I said, "That's it. We're never coming back here again." And lo, Sega never did. But the remaining companies like Nintendo were reluctant to leave CES out of fear that they might not be allowed back into the prestigious event should they come crawling back with their strange furry tails tucked between their legs. How do those furries keep that tail so realistically attached to their backs?
Honestly,
Oh.
that's a good question.
You should follow me.
Other than the other way. Like, is it like a styrofoam like mold or something? Is it just is it like a metal piece, like malleable aluminum or something? Or I don't know what the metal is, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah. Enjoy the Discord.
Hi, Itsy.
When a meeting was arranged between CES and the game companies who were frustrated with how they were being treated, the Consumer Electronics Show basically told them,
Beta, banana, 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 ha 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 ha. But today, I want to talk to you about something serious. Look, you guys make toys. We don't really consider you.
Just as you're watching, we're watching Many Kudos, E3's Many Scandals. Hi, Salvajo. Have good works.
Consumer electronics, but
Make good money.
you're welcome to exhibit at our show. So basically, live with it.
this was the final straw. To quote Aretha Franklin, they weren't getting any RESPEPT. Not from the government and not from their peers. They needed to change that. They needed an event of their own.
Mm-hmm.
They need... yeah, not as impressive this time. I've been here for like 10 minutes now, so... It was time for pure corporate warfare. Once those consumer electronics fellas found out that the ESA had started their own event with blackjack video games and hooker video games, they suddenly changed their tune about gaming and organized their own video game exclusive consumer electronics show. While the game companies still weren't happy with the lack of respect from CES, Microsoft, Nintendo and others were unwilling to risk their spot at the Consumer Electronics Show to gamble on E3, the risky new convention. The Consumer Electronics Show's Gamer
Thank you for
Convention
headpats.
was also booked months earlier than E3, which suited buyers better. So Pat Farrell, now heading up at E3, made a bold decision. They moved E3 to the exact same
Ooh.
days.
Damn.
Everyone had to choose. They couldn't be at both. Through some aggressive PR, which proudly proclaimed every time a new company had been brought over to the dark side of E3, Paddy Farrell gradually managed to siphon more and more businesses away from CES. One day, he got a phone call from Gary Shapiro of CES, who simply said, "You win." Nintendo and Microsoft joined that same afternoon. Bitch! I see you over there. I see you wanted to equip my shirt. Yeah, I bet if we were in a neutral zone, you and me could PvP and you would try and steal it off me. Well, let me tell you, Buster, this shirt is bind on pickup. But I can tell you where you can get your own. FantasyDivision.online. We've got shirts. We've got one hat, okay? We made a tote bag.
You know, honestly, that was a little petty. Booking your convention the same weekend or the same days as your competitor's convention just to take people away from their convention to grow your own. That's a little petty. That's a little petty.
For TCGs, okay? And a lock and a candle and some other stuff. Okay?
They call it business. They call it marketing. I call it petty.
In your cart, and you buy it, and I send you one. Not this one. This is mine, okay? I know we've already established you want it, but you can't have this one. You can have a similar one. One that would be almost indistinguishable, but it is different, all right? And I'm not going to lie to you. The shirt you get is not this shirt. Fantasy Division cannot guarantee that the shirt you order will be the same one worn by Kudos. If you read this, you're a little bitch.
Chapter 2, The Console Wars.
The console wars are fantastic
Xbox
marketing tools
versus
that encourage
PlayStation
sports-like
versus
backing
Nintendo.
That has turbo neats calling each other slurs and decrepit backlit forum pages over which console has the better GPU or which one weighs the most. That's my big boy! Naturally, companies lean heavily into this at E3. From elaborate booths to their fancy, well-rehearsed press conferences, these brands love to put their money on display, all in an attempt to convince you which game or console you should spend the next 3 years screaming about on Twitter. You can see why. Time and time again, we've seen brands make or break their next console, all thanks to a successful or disastrous E3 conference. This precedent was set at the very first E3 in 1995 with Sony's legendary PS1 reveal. Hey, this first one might be a bit familiar if you've seen my video on the Red Ring of Death. At the same E3, Sega shocked all with the surprise reveal that the Sega Saturn, their newest, planetiest console, would be available at retailers that day.
We're at retail today in 1,800 Toys R Us.
Hard to imagine for a
Toys
company
R
that
Us.
today survives on making one good Sonic game every 10 years. But at the time, Sega were the big boys, swinging their plump chili dogs in everyone's faces. Meanwhile, Sony's big, beautiful beige brick, the PS1, was the scrappy underdog.
I haven't heard the name Toys R Us in many years. The olden times.
Vying for attention. And after explaining the PS1's tech and games and shit, PlayStation's US lead Steve Race waddled on stage for a brief presentation. He took to the stage, said $2.99, and then waddled off. The crowd went berserk, or as berserk as a bunch of game journalists in 1995 can get. $2.99 was the PlayStation's price, and it was a full $100 cheaper than the Sega Saturn.
Man.
Or around 200 Costco hot dogs in today's currency. Meanwhile, Sega's surprise early release tactic angered video game nerds who had bugger all launch titles to choose from, as well as retailers who weren't expecting it for another 4 months. I don't feel like I have to tell you how that one shook out. Mum, it was the PlayStation. They sold like 10 times more than the Sega Saturn. Funny then that Sony learned nothing from this. 11 years later, Cards Horion, his stupid pink shirt, took to the stage
Don't make fun of his
E3
pink shirt.
2006 to announce the
He looks
PlayStation
fancy.
3 and its now infamous $4.99 price tag, which was $100 more than its rival, the Xbox 360. Now this was also mentioned in my Red Ring of Death video, but because that focused on the Xbox 360, I never mentioned why the PS3 cost so much. You see, Sony was fighting wars on multiple fronts. While the PlayStation was up against Microsoft and Nintendo's consoles,
Yeah.
Sony's newly minted Blu-ray format was fighting the battle for disc media supremacy against Toshiba's HD DVD. The disc boxes were even color-coded like game boxes with different exclusives depending on which studio backed which formats. In a particularly bold move, Sony decided to include a Blu-ray player in every PS3. Keep in
Really?
mind, standalone Blu-ray players were going for $1,000 at the time. So getting one in your PS3 for only $100 more than the Xbox 360 made the PS3 a great deal. In theory. As good a deal as it was, most gamers wanted their game console to play games.
Yeah.
So having to spend $100 more and wait a year later than the Xbox 360 set the PS3 off on a rocky start. And a fun twist, this ended up being
see
the
that.
correct move, as integrating Blu-ray into the PS3 single-handedly helped Sony defeat Toshiba's HD DVD. Despite the console's turbulent start, the PS3 would go on to sell a whopping 87.4 million units and 0 games. That meant 87 million houses with a Blu-ray player, even if they didn't buy it for that reason. For comparison, 1 month before they cancelled the HD DVD player, Toshiba announced that they had sold under 1 million HD DVD players. Yikes! Can we get Toshiba cancelled on Twitter? Now, a Blu-ray player is actually quite useful, but it was still a vestigial addition for the home media crowd, which added nothing to the core game.
But it was made for the game, not the Blu-ray.
The price. Wow! I wonder who could have done something like
The X-Bone?
Now,
Oh,
this
the Xbox
needed to
One.
be its own segment.
what should have been Microsoft's chance to win fans back over turned into a massacre after Sony used their E3 conference to go for the throat. Now, the Xbox One didn't start on the best footing. Rumors that it would be always online had been circling the internet for months. And it's important to remember this was back when people cared about things which actually mattered. A few weeks prior to E3 2013, the Xbox One was officially unveiled at a Microsoft press conference, and for some fucking reason, focused primarily on its offering as a glorified cable box. As Phil Spencer would one day reflect, we showed things like The Price is Right, for instance. In fact, I think the very first piece of content we showed on an Xbox One was a TV show. This confused
not a game.
everyone, from consumers who bizarrely were expecting a game console to the people who worked on the damn thing who thought they were building a game console. It's also just funny from a marketing standpoint. Like, unlike gamers, normies who just watch TV and movies aren't tuning into keynote speeches about exciting new boxes they can watch television on, especially when that box is the sequel to a video game console. Hey, get this off the fucking screen, man! The dreaded always online function turned out to be mostly true, with these fucking scumbags trying to corporate speak their way into convincing you that it's actually freaking awesome to have to log your Xbox in once every 24 hours or lose access to the single player games you paid for. This is bad for a number of reasons, but even if you have a flawless internet connection, it's still a greedy, restrictive policy that punishes gamers in order to prop up a bunch of other awful anti-consumer features.
That kind of seems like they were trying to foster gaming addiction. You had to log into your Xbox at least once a day before you lose access to your games? What kind of bullshit is it?
All of this always online nonsense was supposedly to allow developers to create massive persistent worlds that evolve even when you're not playing, which is something PC gaming achieved with dial-up, as well as being able to access your digital library at your friend's house, which is something 3 people would have used. Gone are the simple days of buying a physical game and playing, trading, or selling it as you wish. In the proposed Xbox One Cyberpunk hell, your physical games are now just mysterious disc-shaped keys bound for...
But on a real talk, I've heard so many counts on that happen. That's why I don't care for Xbox. To me, Xbox is like the Burger King of video games. And that says a lot because I fucking hate Burger King.
ever to your Microsoft account once placed inside the Xbox One's tight little slit. This convoluted announcement proudly boasts that anyone can play any games on your console regardless of their relationship to you, which is how it's always worked. Of course, the real kicker is their policy on trading and selling games. A policy in which Microsoft has
Trade-in and reseller does. Today, some gamers choose to sell their old disc games back for cash and credit. Redesign Xbox One so game publishers can enable you to trade your games at participating retailers. Microsoft does not charge a platform fee to retailers, publishers, or consumers for enabling transfer of these. Okay.
Kindly allow developers to choose whether or not their games can be traded or resold. So just to reiterate, this would be Microsoft going to a company and saying, hey, do you want to make more money or less money?
Jesus.
Besides intentionally attacking the secondary market to prohibit third-party sales so Don Metric can afford more first-class flights, this would have been dire news for game preservation.
Actually, you know, even if you could resell your games back to GameStop, GameStop will only give you like, what, 5 points of credit for selling your game back? And not even, and just like $5 in store credit, so you can't even buy a whole game with that.
Well, as like the, you know, the way you expect purchasing an item to work. You will own nothing and be ambivalent about it. Finally, like the PlayStation had done 7 years ago, Microsoft had superglued an additional piece of technology onto every Xbox One, something that added nothing to the core gaming experience while inflating the console's price. The Kinect. You know, Microsoft's answer to the Wii's grandma-friendly money-printing motion controls. Not only did this jack up the price for a gimmick aimed at a casual audience, it was required to run the damn thing, even if you didn't own a single Kinect game. It is imperative that Microsoft have a camera and microphone in your living room 24/7 with a direct feed going to the digital panopticon in Bill Gates' office. So, people hated it. It's a nice reminder to the fucking ghouls in charge that at the end of the day, it's us that holds power.
Wait, I think I blacked out. Did he say that they had to buy the Kinect? Like it was mandatory? Like it comes with the console?
Not them. And their blatant
whether you want it or not
would not go unpunished. In addition to a tidal wave of bad press and Angry Joe videos about the situation, there was a deluge of negative comments and cool 2013 memes mocking Microsoft's new, stupid home media hub. And of course, the console's name, which Microsoft hoped would be abbreviated to the monumentally lame The One, in the same way people say the 360, ended up earning the nickname the Xbone. Still, this was nothing compared to what Sony did in response, or rather, didn't do. 3 weeks later, E3 2013.
Hold on, chat. Sorry, my classmate from elementary or whatever. I gotta go home to my Xbone. I gotta log in. My 24 hours is almost up. I gotta log in before I lose access to my Halo 16.
This was Microsoft's chance to win everyone back.
I gotta go
While
Xbone.
they managed to actually show off some video games for their video game console, they did little to address or clarify their stance on trading games or being always online, despite the deluge of criticism. When they did discuss it in interviews afterwards, it didn't exactly go to plan. You might have seen this insane quote from Xbox's Don Metric, who looks like Martin Shkreli mixed with Adam Scott, where he says,
fortunately, we have a product for people who aren't able to get some form of connectivity. It's called Xbox 360.
Right. So stick with 360. That's your message if you don't.
Well,
it's funny. You can kind of see the exact moment he knows he fucked up. Like,
yeah. If you don't want to buy our Xbox One, which is our most recent console and what's making us the most money, you can just go buy the previous one, the one that's actually going to make us less money and one that we're going to terminate service for eventually because it's not up to standards it's not up to our standards anymore. Just go buy that one. Wait, actually don't go buy that one.
Kid sort of planned for this, but only realized how bad it sounded after it had already left his throat. Several hours after Microsoft's E3 presentation, Sony held their own to reveal the PS4. In a series of slides and speeches that were clearly added or tweaked to specifically call out the Xbox One, Sony announced to raucous applause. As we make our leap into the next generation of gaming, we at Sony have decided to not do any of that shit. With no mandatory additions like the Kinect weighing it down, the PS4 was also able to undercut the Xbox One by a full $100, as the Xbox 360 had done to the PS3 just one generation ago. As a final fuck you, Sony bigwigs Adam Boyes and Shu Yoshida filmed a 20-second clip that in contrast to Xbox's labyrinthian games ownership rules, showed just how simple it was to trade a PS4 game.
This is how you share your games on PS4. Thanks.
Keep in mind, this was before every corporation decided to act like a sassy, somehow lamer version of Wendy's Twitter. So this casual, passive-aggressive, shitposty energy felt unique and refreshing, especially coming from the Japanese megacorp. While
dig.
Microsoft felt out of touch with gamers, Sony seemed more in tune than ever. And this short clip was phenomenal guerrilla marketing. After a week of constant mockery from fans, rivals, and even the US military, Microsoft caved and reversed its always online policy and restrictive game licensing
Thank
rules.
God.
They also removed the requirements for the Kinect to be plugged in for the console to function, but still included one in every
was
box
so
at launch,
stupid.
perhaps trying to force it into relevancy like Sony did with Blu-ray. Unfortunately for Microsoft, the damage was already done. Microsoft stopped publishing sales numbers about a year after the console's release, which probably says something in itself. But in 2023, they finally admitted that Sony had sold around twice as many PS4s as they had sold Xbox One.
Hey, I'm seeing and hearing a lot of talk about Xbox and PlayStation, but where is my Nintendo love? Nintendo as a company sucks ass, but the Nintendo developers and the games, I mean, come on. Where's the love for the Nintendo devs?
That disastrous console reveal really put such a sour taste in the mouth of the consumer that even today, 12 years since the Xbox One was revealed, Microsoft has never been able to recapture the massive dominance they held.
I saw the recommendation, but we're not going to watch it today.
During the 360 era. Current Xbox head and sourpuss Phil Spencer believes that this was the worst generation to lose.
This is the first generation where the big games that they're playing were games that were available last gen. When you think about Fortnite and Roblox and Minecraft, like the continuity from generation to generation is so strong. I see a lot of pundits out there that kind of want to go back to the time where we all had cartridges and discs and every new generation was a clean slate. There is no world where Starfield's an 11 out of 10 and people start selling their PS5.
I agree, Phil. That shit was like a 6 at best.
You didn't do anything wrong. Let me watch videos at my pace, okay? Please. I saw the recommendation, I'll get to it.
Between cinematic trailers, which are fully pre-rendered cutscenes that show off the story, characters, and tone of a game while featuring no actual gameplay, and gameplay trailers, which do, in theory. We even have cute little disclaimers now, telling you if it's pre-rendered or what console it was captured on, or reminders for John to call up his mum because it's her birthday today. These disclaimers are because John forgot to say happy birthday to his mum last year, and she took it really bad. And because of the massive fan backlash to a number of high-profile fake trailers, which I have, in my boundless generosity, decided to talk to you about today. You know you could be watching these videos 2 days earlier. You know you could be watching these videos with more parts. Yes, that's right. I'm now uploading extended cuts to Patreon. For only $5 worldly dollars, you could be watching my newest videos 2 days earlier. Joining these fine, handsome... Okay, not that one.
And if you want to see Dopelix and I commission the cameos you saw in this video, that'll be up on Patreon later this week. India Joker, baby, I'm going to give it to you straight. You're going to be a star.
Head to patreon.com/manykudos. That's patreon.com/.
Thank you for the compliment.
One of the best examples of this sort of false advertising was the Killzone 2 trailer shown at E3 2005. The PS3 game swept the show with its phenomenal action-packed first-person trailer that was touted as real gameplay. If this is true in-game rendering though, and again we have no reason to believe that it's not, then Killzone 2 is definitely one of the most impressive visual demos ever to appear at E3. Now, it seems so obviously fake in retrospect. The camera and character movement is so fluid that it feels more like an arcade rail shooter Not to mention
Kinda
the
seems
sort
like
of
an animated
fire,
movie.
smoke and lighting effects that had no hope of being rendered in real time back then. I suppose it speaks to the optimism we had for new consoles back in the 2000s, with a large chunk of gamers, journalists, and industry professionals all thinking, who knows, maybe the PS3 can run this? With graphics killer miles ahead of anything else shown, optimistic gamers blindly believed that it has to be real, while more skeptical fedora-wearing gamers argued that the only reason it looks better is because it's fake. Still, when pressed about the trailer, Sony bigwig Jack Tretton reaffirmed that it was actual gameplay.
Is there some stuff in there that's just, you know, computer smoke and mirrors?
It's definitely real. I guess we're pretty good at keeping secrets because the dev kits were out there. The dev kits are very intuitive, so people did some incredible things. And that's one thing Ted wanted to make sure everybody understood. That is real gameplay everybody's seeing out there.
As you can imagine, the staff at Guerrilla weren't exactly impressed.
Watching this back home going like, no, what does he just say? Because, you know, that's not true. But then we figured like, you know, nobody will believe.
Are these guys the sole reason why at the bottom of like the visual demos that it says this does not reflect real gameplay? Because of this guy's fucking claim?
Believe that because it's obvious that it's all rendered. And then we went online, and lots of people actually did believe it. And then we were like, "Oh, this is not good."
In interviews done since the event, several current and former Guerrilla Games staff revealed that the trailer was not only pre-rendered; it was only meant to be used internally
as marketing,
a benchmark to strive for. It would also be shown privately to select members of the press to give them a feel for the kind of game they hoped to make. Apparently, Sony was so impressed by the trailer that they chose to show it to the world instead during their E3 2005 press conference. Still, the team took this in their stride and used the hype as motivation to help them match the trailer's lofty vision.
The importance of communication.
Going to be the first video game in history to be named Killzone 2 on release. While the Killzone 2 trailer was completely pre-rendered,
wait a second. Killzone 2 is a singular game, it's not a sequel? Why is it 2 in there?
Between cinematic and gameplay was blurred several times in a row by... Oh, sorry, I have to climb a tower to reveal this part of the video. Ah, of course.
Oh.
For whatever reason, in the early to mid-2010s, Ubisoft's marketing team decided that their gameplay trailers should all lie in the most obnoxious way possible. The Division, Far Cry 4, Rainbow Six Siege, and most infamously, Watch Dogs, all featured E3 gameplay trailers, seemingly captured in-engine, with wildly advanced visuals and effects. These trailers usually feature volumetric lighting, dense prop placement, and impressive particle effects.
Hey, you know, it looks
Seriously, the
good.
fog machine in this hallway and the Watch Dogs trailer is so atmospheric. It's really, really cool.
Oh.
Meanwhile, the mixture
Never
of
mind.
camera, particle, and audio effects make this petrol station explosion feel just so punchy and cinematic. The Watch Dogs trailer also has this car crash scene, which features what you'd assume are real-time car physics, though this also appears to be heavily scripted. You can actually see whoever's playing purposefully face away from the left road, so half the cars needed for the crash can suddenly spawn in when they need them to. So, when the game launched a year later and looked significantly different to what was advertised, fans weren't exactly moist. Critically, it still received
Not
about
very
as many
moist.
7 out of 10s as you'd expect for a Ubisoft game, and is more or less remembered fondly today, even if fans can't help but mourn the idea of the game we were sold. Not long after the game's release, a modder by the name of The Worse found that many of the graphical improvements seen in the E3 version were still present in the game's files and could be modded back in. The weirdest part of this to me is that
they were present in the files, but they didn't release it so it actually looked like what it was advertised in the trailer. They had it in the game, but they actively turned it off, and it just had to be turned back on.
that the actual graphics for these games are great and still hold up today. This visual subterfuge only helped erode Ubisoft's increasingly rocky
All they had to do was flip a
reputation.
switch?
But if I've learned one thing, it's that the internet is not real life. For every person complaining on Reddit about how scummy this is, I'm sure a dozen people saw these souped up trailers while sitting on their couch, mouth agape like the Quagmire toilet, and managed to rub their two brain cells together long enough to think, I need to buy this game. Unrelated, but this was the same time that Ubisoft felt the need to add these painfully scripted casual conversations into their trailers.
Whoa, it's another group of players. Brace for PvP.
Now you can finally imagine what it would be like to play Ubisoft's new third-person shooter with a diverse team of the most boring cunts on the planet. Anthem's E3 2017 reveal trailer.
They didn't sound really
surprisingly
impressed.
stayed brief mention. With the game still in pre-production when it was revealed, this optimistic trailer took wild swings at what they hoped it would look like on launch. This isn't uncommon, of course, with most reveal trailers coming out years before the game actually does. So some changes in design are to be expected.
Oh, like Silk
What
Song.
is it, you better add in dance studios. But as you can see,
But Silk Song didn't have a trailer until it was close to the release day. They announced it like, what, 7? I think it was years ago? And then they only recently put out a trailer, like last month, and now it's going to be released tomorrow.
in Nick 930's fantastic comparison
For $20?
video, the E3 trailer missed the mark in many ways. Like most of these fake trailers, it featured realistic lighting and shadows, but also implied the sort of scale and draw distance you only see in modded Minecraft videos. Unfortunately for Anthem, it A, looked sick, and B, massively overestimated what would be possible. These lofty expectations, BioWare's indecisive management, and the dreaded Frostbite engine saw its 2019 release crash and burn like a truck carrying hot tar driving into a kindergarten. After releasing two middling reviews, there was hope that BioWare would pull a Final Fantasy XIV and patch their way out of a shitty launch. Unfortunately, in early 2021, these hopes were squashed like a kindergartner being hit by a hot tar truck, when it was announced that development on Anthem had been halted indefinitely. Quick honorable
Never to be
mentions.
released.
Aliens
I don't
Colonial
know.
Marines showed off its fancy alien AI at E3 2011, but then Randy Pitchford stole all the fucking money to make Borderlands 2 and Duke Nukem Forever. A simple syntax error ruined the whole game's AI. Whoops. No Man's Sky. An indie studio's ambitious
No Man's
title
Sky.
that had its hype train fly off the rails after being picked up by Sony. The trailer was the great Implio Matrix, giving you the impression that you could do much more than you really could. Sometimes you need to start a forest fire to nourish the ground, and after being scorched by everyone, Hello Games turned their reputation around by releasing, as of time of writing, 1 billion updates.
Yeah, somehow No Man's Sky managed to turn it around. From trash release to bugs all over the place, and all of a sudden it's a well-loved game because they actually worked on it and fixed everything that they fucked up. And all the lies that Sean said during the marketing campaign for No Man's Sky. I think there's a video about that, if I remember.
E3's death was like watching someone slowly wither away, being diagnosed with a new major ailment every few years before being unceremoniously obliterated in a nuclear blast. While COVID was the obvious death of E3, its issues had been compounding long before we started sipping bat soup last.
Bugs in a game can either help or hurt your playing experience. It depends on what kind of bugs it is, because if it's like funny, silly bugs that doesn't affect the gameplay whatsoever, then yeah, that's fine. Because those can be easily fixed if they want to fix it, and it's harmless. But if there are bugs that actively ruin the gaming experience, then yeah, that'll tank public opinion down really fast.
The prickliest problem for the companies presenting was primarily the cost, both in terms of man hours and
Like Skyrim Spaghetti Code. No, like Pokemon. Which one was it? Either Sword and Shield or X and Y. I remember Sword and Shield, but I don't think the bugs in Sword and Shield were like bad bugs. They were just like funny visual bugs. Oh, and Scarlet Violet did have funny visual. There was a lot of bugs in Scarlet and Violet too, I remember. that they did fix. As far as I haven't played Scarlet and Violet in a long time.
direct cash. This was easy to justify in the 90s and 2000s when it was the premier event for showcasing games, consoles, and latest
rewatch that video
to retailers and journalists. But the importance of the retail buyer began to wane in the 2010s as
not today, later,
distribution hemorrhaged
later
business
this week,
away
later.
from physical retailers. E3 was also too late for the buyers who did attend, who much preferred to plan their Christmas orders way earlier than June. The internet would also be the death of E3's other major draw.
Doing Nuzlocke on it too. I have Scarlet that I have not played because I played Violet. I have Scarlet. If we wanted to do a Nuzlocke, it had to be Scarlet. Which might. I'll think about it.
The press. In the before times, journalists would attend E3 to sample upcoming games and chat with devs. Also, they could report back to Total Gamer or Cube or GameSpot and tell eager fans how to spin their clams. With the rise of social media, fans now had a dedicated line to their favorite developers and publishers, who could now directly share trailers and information with them without arbitrarily waiting for June and without wasting a bunch of time and money fluffing up games journalists. This was quite a substantial amount of money, by the way. In a GamesIndustry.biz interview with Peter Moore, he states, it was in the tens of millions of dollars, whether that's building out the booth or attending. In those days, we were taking 300, 400, 500 people to E3. But also you had to look at the productivity cost of taking people away from their day jobs for months to work on booth development, marketing tools, digital assets, everything. Still, cost wasn't the only factor. With the retail and journalism sides of the event quickly losing relevance, many companies like EA were keen to open the trade-only show to the public. After all, one random jackoff making a viral tweet about your game was starting to become more valuable than some games journalist's verbose article. This put them at odds with E3, who are unwilling to commit to a full-blown public convention, and for good reason. The way you plan a trade show for industry professionals who are paid to be there is vastly different from a convention for fans who paid to be there. And E3's inability to juggle these competing viewpoints would ultimately be its doom. When EA couldn't convince E3 to let fans join their 2016 presentation, they up and left entirely. Others, like Nintendo, continued exhibiting on the floor at E3, but opted to host their own pre-recorded digital presentation instead of a live conference. Smaller companies were slowly but surely leaving as well, struggling to justify the massive costs and meager returns. In just 2 years, the show went from 293 exhibitors in 2017 to 209 exhibitors in 2019. This would also be the first year since the show started in 1995 that Sony would choose not to exhibit. They now hosted their own private event for buyers in February and announced games whenever they wanted on their social media.
Didn't E3 send a lot of lawsuits for anyone who tried to mess with them, or is it Rockstars I'm thinking about? I haven't heard anything about any of that, honestly. Like, I pay attention to, like, game news, but I don't, like, what's the word? I'm not entirely, I don't know, honestly, I'm sorry. Look it up a little bit.
Leaving E3 with little to offer them. 2019 would also see the ESA, the company behind E3, embroiled in many scandals. Morale was at an all-time low, largely in part to disgraced President Mike Gallagher, whose cruel leadership techniques most likely earned him the axe in 2019. Things went from bad to worse when they accidentally published a list containing the private details of over 2,000 journalists, influencers, and attendees of E3 2019 to their public website. Naturally, this led to a spike of death threats and harassment, to which the ESA said, sorry, I'm real sorry, mister. Mister, I'm real sorry about you getting the death threats. It was a real shame. The companies exhibiting at E3 already felt the ESA was struggling to accommodate their needs.
This is the AI overview that when I looked up on Google just now. Major legal issues related to Electronic Entertainment Expo. That's what it means? Electronic Entertainment Expo E3 and its organizer, Entertainment Software Association, ESA, include The 2019 data breach that exposed journalists' private information, multiple lawsuits filed by the ESA against state legislation concerning video games. E3 was officially shut down in 2023. In August 2019, ESA accidentally exposed the private information of over 2,000 journalists, streamers, and industry professionals who had attended E3. They include names, email addresses, home addresses. I did completely miss that in the video. Damn, they completely doxed everybody. That's not a little oopsie. That's a pretty fucking big oopsie.
And these blunders would only further erode their trust. E3 2020 was shaping up to be some kind of corpo hellscape with emphasis on influencers and celebrities taking part in exclusive/appointment-only activations for select attendees that will create buzz and FOMO, which would have been really fucking funny to watch. If you want to see a visual comparison of a fan convention compared to a trade show, look at the floor plans for their 2018 floor and their proposed 2021. Whoa, I can't wait to check out Experience One.
Yeah, what's that Experience One?
Brand with consumers while storing positive shits for future use. Fuck it, who knows? Maybe this would have been just what E3 needed to stay relevant enough to stick around for a few more years, but we'll never know. Because E3 2020 never happened. After cancelling the show in mid-March due to lockdowns, they claimed they would host a virtual event instead. But with only 3 months to throw this together and the world as a whole still unsure just where
I remember
this
they tried to do a virtual event.
They would ultimately bin this idea a month later. Of course, capitalism groans on no matter how many grandmas are getting turned into worms. And the companies that would have exhibited at E3 2020 still had shit to announce. Nintendo and Sony were already doing their major announcements digitally, and it wouldn't take long for everyone else to throw together their own.
I wonder when they started doing that. Was that after the E3 thing? When they, during like the lockdown and stuff? That's probably when they started doing Nintendo Directs and stuff. And then they only... Like, I know they stopped doing E3 and started doing Nintendo Directs, and then they also announced stuff during the Game Awards. I know too.
E3 would return in 2021 as a free, fully virtual event. While they still featured a lot of heavy hitters like Microsoft, Nintendo, and Ubisoft, the lack of a physical event made it indistinguishable from the dozen other virtual events thrown by publishers, publications, and Jeff Keighley.
Yeah, because why the heck would I go to your public event when I already got Nintendo Directs that I can do, says Nintendo.
At this point, E3 had become incredibly hard to justify. After everyone was forced to set up their own digital presentations back in 2020, it seems easier to just do that again without being shackled to E3. On top of that, the video game industry exploded over COVID, as your only options in lockdown were playing video games, playing with your little beast, or becoming a YouTuber. This explosion happened.
I don't think I want that visual in my head again.
In 2020, making it very, very hard for the money men to justify throwing tens of millions of dollars and thousands of hours of blow power at the next one. After cancelling E3 2022 over COVID and struggling to generate enough interest, the ESA announced in December of 2023 that E3 wouldn't be returning, ever. I don't know, kind of sad. It's turned Summer Games Fest and the Game Awards into the de facto gaming events of the year. So I hope you like Jeff Keighley. Just kidding, Jeff, I think you're alright. You seem like a nice guy. But despite its flaccid demise, E3 had done its job. From its beginning in 1995 to its end in 2021, gaming couldn't be in a more different place. During the 93-94 Senate hearing on video game violence, Tom Kalinske, head of Sega of America, had to explain that video games aren't just for kids. They scoffed. They couldn't believe it. Are you kidding me? Everyone knows video games are just children's products. You shouldn't be doing these aggressive things. And they basically tossed me out of their offices in DC. 30 years later, and the video game industry is bigger than the NFL and Hitler combined, bro. That's insane. The
Wait,
presence
what?
of a major trade show
I blacked
like
out for a
E3 was
sec.
crucial
Why would this
in
work?
legitimizing my favorite hobby. And despite all its flaws, E3 will forever hold a special place in my heart. Miyamoto, play us out.
Dun, 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 dun.
Okay, well, that was actually just the whole fucking video. Yeah. Well, guess you don't have to watch it anymore. Guess you don't have to buy it anymore.
Hey, thank you so much for watching all the way through. If you're after some more content, I just dropped a brand new video on my second channel where I review Steam games with 0 reviews. Otherwise, why not check out the Mini Scandals playlist?
Good video. 9 out of 10. It would be a 10 out of 10 if Nintendo was mentioned more. There was no love for Nintendo. Nintendo got like mentions here and there. Nothing about Nintendo during this whole thing. No love for the underdog, right, chat?